Good morning, TV Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome viewing audience. And our TV Toastmasters are welcome also. I would like to especially welcome the behind the scenes, our director, Nikki Bishop, and Rick Davis, who is running the camera and will be having a dual role this morning. I did want to announce that the Talk Toastmasters in Milford is having 4 free workshops, and you may give me a call if you would like more information about that. They start in October and end November the 19th, and it may be too late by the time you see this. I would like to welcome our Toastmaster of the day, Dick Reed. And Dick comes to us from the Pioneer Club. He belongs to 2 clubs. And let us welcome Advanced Able Toastmaster Dick Reed.
Thank you, Carol. And it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a delight to have everyone here. Today, we are going to have a speaker, and as well as table topics. So I'd like to begin this portion of the meeting with table topics. Now, table topics is the portion of the meeting that is extemporaneous speaking. That is, we don't know what the question will be, so we have an opportunity to answer a short question, 1 to 2 minutes. So I'd like to introduce our table topic master, Rick Davis.
I have some Toastmaster questions today. I'd like to find out what is Toastmasters. Steve, would you come up here and tell me what is Toastmasters?
Thank you, Mr. Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, our honored guests that are looking in today. What is Toastmasters? Well, for those of you who have no acquaintance at all with what Toastmasters is it is actually an international organization that has been around for quite some time. I mean, we're talking decades. And Toastmasters is an organization that's primary focus is to promote public speaking skills and leadership skills. It provides a nurturing environment where members receive positive feedback on what they do well and also what they could improve as a part of their public speaking or their communication abilities. The Toastmasters organization is comprised of a number of clubs, areas, districts, and goes on all the way up to international. It's predominantly a volunteer organization. The thing that I like about Toastmasters is that it provides a safe environment for me to try different skills as far as my public speaking go. Also gives me leadership opportunities, and it's a very dynamic organization. The people are always positive, which I think is really a good thing to have, a positive influence in your life. You can get involved to whatever extent you would like, and I would like any of you who are interested to seriously consider coming to visit us or some other Toastmaster club in your area. You can go online, and if you look under Toastmasters or Toastmasters International, you will get to a website that you can use to start finding your way into a club that would be in your area. You can also look for District 40 Toastmasters, and you'll find information on clubs in the greater Cincinnati area. With that, I'm going to turn it back to our Table Topics Master.
Okay, I can see why someone who is speaking every day would be interested in joining a Toastmaster club. Carol, can you come and talk about why a retiree would want to be in a Toastmasters club?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome viewing audience. Why would a retiree want to be in Toastmasters? Because one thing, it expands your circle of friends, and you may think that you know it all, and it's what you learn after you know it all that really matters. I thought I was a good leader because I said, you do it my way or your replacement will. And I found out those are a driver. They drive people crazy. And learning to be a leader just happens to give me a good lead into our magazine, our newspaper from the district that is coming out this week, selected a Toastmaster of the Year out of the 3,000 Toastmasters, and the Toastmaster of the Year happened to be me. So I am learning leadership because it wasn't all the things that I did for myself that mattered. It was what I did for other people that really made the difference in my service. And I was quite pleased with the write-up there, and I really thought I got it because I did all my duties with a shattered elbow. They didn't even mention my shattered elbow in there, so I guess that wasn't why I got it. Mr. Tabletopics Master.
I'd like to call up our newest member. And Darren, could you explain to us why you became a Toastmaster?
Thank you, Mr. Tabletopics Master, audience, and fellow TV Toastmasters. I became a member of Toastmasters because from an early age, I had a fear of public speaking. I became a member of Toastmasters probably 7 years ago, and I took a brief break of about 2 years, and now I'm back involved in the organization. And when I walked into my first Toastmasters meeting, I was terrified. I had all these people around, and my thoughts were, these people are going to tear me apart and tell me everything I do terribly, and tell me I'm a terrible speaker. But much to my surprise, what they did was uplift me and tell me, you do this well, you can improve on this, and it really was a very positive situation. So anyone who has a fear of public speaking, or anyone who would just like to become a better public speaker, this is a fantastic organization, and I really urge you to get involved. And the most difficult thing about Toastmasters is walking through the door. Once you get through the door, the rest of it's very easy. And that's the reason that I joined Toastmasters.
I think I'd like to end the table topics portion of the meeting, and I will invite back our Toastmaster for the day, Dick Reed. Dick.
Thank you, Rick. Those were excellent questions. The next part of our meeting is, let's see, word power. So I'd like to invite Carol Kormelink.
Actually, Darren's going to do it for me.
Oh, okay. I'd like to invite Darren to present our word of the day and pass along a little hint or two.
Okay, thank you. The word of today, or there are actually two words of the day. They are flout and flaunt. And we'd like to understand a little bit about the difference between those two words. Use flaunt to describe the actions of people who like to show off. Use flout to describe the actions of people who openly defy authority or rules. A couple examples are, Donald Trump likes to flaunt his wealth. Another example is, Mike likes to flout conventional wisdom by buying Christmas gifts in July.
Sometimes buying Christmas gifts in July is not a bad idea. I've never done that. I always wait till December 24th, but that's all right. Don't do as I say, do as I do. Or never mind. The main part of our meeting this morning is our speaker, and our first speaker is Sheila Mudd Baker. I'd like to introduce her. Please welcome me in joining Sheila.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. For children in American schools, there is something we all learn. We have a right, a birthright to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, the question today is, what the heck is this happiness that we're in pursuit of? So I went to the dictionary and looked at happy. It says characterized by good fortune, good luck, having, taking, or demonstrating pleasure or satisfaction, being glad, being well adapted, appropriate, felicitous, which goes back to luck. When we say that this was a happy turn of events, again, it goes back to luck. Characterized by a spontaneous or obsessive inclination to use something, such as trigger happy. Enthusiastic about or involved with it to a disproportionate degree, such as money happy. If we were going to give a synonym to happy as we often use it, we say fit or glad. Now, is this what was expected in the pursuit of happiness by our forefathers? Our forefathers being our political forefathers, because some of us didn't have our forefathers and foremothers here at that time. Did we really teach our children to pursue money? Did we teach them to pursue obsessions? Well, the media seems to do so. The media defines happiness in a lot of different ways. Every American must have their own piece of land, their own house, or they're not going to be happy. Every American must have the right car, or they won't be happy. Now, I'm having a little trouble deciding what that happy car would be. It has to have great gas mileage. It has to be able to put everything in it, and it has to look so cool I can hardly stand it, yet look completely respectable. Will I be happy when I have that car? Maybe, maybe not. Beauty, that's another thing. Every American man and woman wants to be as good looking as they possibly can. They know they will be happy if they will be beautiful. If I lose 10 more pounds, if my wrinkles disappear, if I suddenly look like I'm 20 years old, will I be happy? Maybe yes, maybe no. Our jobs. We all think if we get just the right job, we will be happy. I'll get the right promotion. I will get the right fit for me. I will be happy. And relationships. The media definitely tells us if you're not married, you're not happy. But if you're not single, you're not happy. If you are married, you might not be happy, so we're going to tell you all the things you need to pursue in order to be happy in your marriage. And if that doesn't work, we're going to tell you how to be happy in your divorce. So, what is it that is happiness? For our forefathers, the world was a different place. It was a world in which the average person didn't have electricity because there was no such thing except for Ben Franklin, of course. You didn't have electricity, you didn't have a car, you probably didn't even own your own house unless you built it yourself. It meant in America that you had the right to pick up from wherever you were and go somewhere else. In America, it meant that even if you didn't know anything, you could learn it. You could learn to be something different than you were. You could reinvent yourself, and that seems to be part of our great American dream. We're happiest when we're reinvented. It gets back to the car. If I have the perfect car, everyone will think I am whatever it is I want them to think. I am all too cool. I am absolutely acceptable. I am completely practical. I am très cool. All of those things are reinventing who we are. And for Americans, the idea of happiness quite often has to do with the do it yourself, fix it yourself, make yourself better kind of situation. I will be happier if I have that house, have that car, have that right relationship, and lose enough weight and have enough plastic surgery so that my eyes will be perfect while I'm at it. But to our forefathers, it was be all you could be. It's not just a slogan, it's be the best that you can be. The freedom to pursue what you know is right for you. Now, in more recent years, we refer to that as following your bliss, whatever the bliss is. And we all think of bliss as something that is happiness. But what is that? It seems to be individualized. Each person has their own definition of what will make them happy. For example, for Toastmasters, being able to stand up here and speak in front of a camera can make me very, very happy. It's something I pursue, something I want to do. Yet for many of you watching on television, It makes you much happier to sit on your couch and watch me because you like to listen to speakers, but you're not very interested in talking. Or I may have triggered something in you that says, I want to be just like that. I want to be in front of that camera. I want to be speaking. For some people, it is building your own house, creating your own car, not just buying it. For others, it might be researching, learning about all those things. For some, it might be adventuring. In the time of our forefathers, it meant picking up, throwing something on your back, and going to unknown territory, hoping to win your fortune and to have all the things you wanted in your life. Happiness seems to have something to do with knowing the difference between your wants and your needs. What do I want? What do I need? Again, it gets to be individualized. What do I need to be fully who I need to be? What do I need to be the best I can be? Well, that's not the same as our wants. I want the 7 or 8 cars that can define every part of my personality. I want the great house, but I don't want to do any housework, so there's a problem there. So my needs are different than my wants. My needs will be things like I need a place to live. I don't necessarily need any other transportation but my own 2 feet, and enough food to stay alive. But my wants are very different. So happiness seems to be able to the ability to distinguish between your needs and your wants, pursuing your needs until you meet them, and forgetting about your wants whenever they get in the way of your needs. So it gets back again. What is happiness? For Americans, it meets our forefathers' definition. Be the best that you can be, and you will be happy. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Now I'd like to have a 1-minute pause while we gather our thoughts together and make comments, and then I'd like to introduce our general evaluator. I'd now like to introduce our general evaluator, Steve Arnholz. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our honored guests watching in with us today. The evaluation portion of a Toastmasters meeting is where we do a couple of things. Specifically, we want to provide positive feedback to the participants in the meeting. We want to tell people what they're doing well, what their strengths are. We also want to identify their growth areas, or sometimes I refer to them as challenges. And these are areas that they might want to consider modifying something that they're doing. And I always look for examples. When evaluators are giving an evaluation, provide some perspective on what they could do. Give an example, or point out exactly what it is you're talking about. It helps the individual to identify specifically what they might want to consider changing. Well, my evaluation team today consists of several people that you're going to meet during the course of the evaluation portion of our meeting. And what I would like to do first is call up our evaluator for Sheila's speech today. What I'm going to ask the evaluator to do is to read to us the objectives from Sheila's manual speech. What was it she was trying to accomplish? Because this comes from one of the advanced manuals, Speaking to Inform. And I will ask Dick Reed to come up and give us his evaluation. And Dick, if you would give us Sheila's objectives before you start the evaluation, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. This is speech number 5 from the manual Speaking to Inform. Her objectives were to research and analyze an abstract concept, theory, or historical force or social political issue. To present the ideas in a clear, interesting manner, and to do this in 6 to 8 minutes. And I think that Sheila has met those objectives quite well. Within the speech, within the manual, there are some guidelines for evaluation, such as how did the speaker define the scope of the speech topic? Well, I think she did that very eloquently by starting with a definition from the dictionary and then giving a lot of examples of what we consider happiness. And certainly happiness is as abstract a concept as I can think of. Was the topic narrow enough to explain in the time allotted? Yes, I think she did that very well. She covered pretty much all of the aspects of happiness, or what we consider as happiness, and a lot of things that we mistake for happiness. How effectively did the speaker draw on experts' opinions? Well, she used a rather interesting expert opinion, our forefathers. And what did our founding people who founded this country consider as happiness? And it's interesting how that has changed over the centuries. Sheila, I thought that you had a very good organization for the speech. Some of the things that I really liked were the way that you spoke, your speech projection, and your enunciation. Those were all excellent. And I liked the organization. You started with what's the dictionary definition was. You gave a lot of examples and gave a lot of examples about what we often confuse happiness with what true happiness is. I have very few suggestions for improvement because I think that you did such an excellent job on it. But I was pleased with the speech, and I look forward to other speeches from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick, for a comprehensive evaluation of Sheila's presentation today. The next member of my evaluation team that I would like to call up here will be Darren Henderson, who actually has two roles as far as the evaluation portion of our meeting this week. He is providing us with both the counter and grammarian report, which is where he will give us some feedback on our usage of English. And he'll also let us know if anybody used the words of the day, flout and flaunt. And then he'll also give us a perspective on how we're doing as far as our time allocation during the course of the meeting. So help me welcome Darren.
Thank you. On the grammarian's report, I believe Sheila did use the word. I believe I heard flaunt.
Good.
Once. On our odd counters, us and ahs are grammatical crutches that we often use to fill gaps in our speeches. And I'm certain that I had a couple uhs when I was up here earlier. And Dick, you also had 2 or 3 uhs and ahs when you were up here. As far as the timer's report, I just used 1, so make that 3 for me. On the timer's report, table topics typically go 1 to 2 minutes. Carol, you went 1 minute, 15 seconds. I went 1 minute, 2 seconds. And Steve, you were right on time at 2 minutes and 4 seconds. For the speeches, Sheila's speech was between 6 and 8 minutes. She was right on target at 7 minutes and 50 seconds. And Dick, your evaluation was supposed to be 2 to 3 minutes. You were right on target about 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Thank you, Darren. You know, it's always a challenge to be grammarian and counter where you're looking for some of the crutches that we use during our speech and timing at the same time. You have to pay attention to a couple of things that are going on. My role as general evaluator is to provide some feedback regarding the overall conduct of the meeting, as well as providing some feedback for the evaluators. A couple of things that I had wanted to comment on as a part of our meeting today. And specifically, I wanted to talk about our lectern transition. One of the things we've been trying here at TV Toastmasters is to conduct several of our meetings with something other than a traditional lectern that you would stand behind. One of the things I find comes to my mind because I heard examples of it this week at work. People confuse lecterns and the podium. You stand on a podium, and the way I remember that is because you have the root podo, which is a foot, because you go to a podiatrist. So you stand on the podium, but you stand behind the lectern, which is the object you may have in front of you that you place things on. Anyway, we've been trying to do some things here at TV Toastmasters and use either no lectern at all or some type of alternate. I think we need to look at that a little bit more as far as how well it's working for us. This pillar that we have is a pseudo-lectern. The problem is it doesn't give us much working space. So one of the things I'd like to have us consider is maybe using a lectern, but have it up here off to the side so we can accommodate it with the camera, but if the speaker chooses to get out from behind the lectern and we can videotape them without a lectern in front of them, we can do that. Because for some things it is nice to have a few things that you're working from in front of you. Another comment about the lectern is the handing off of the lectern. This is the process that occurs when the speaker who's being introduced comes up and takes control of the lectern from the speaker that has introduced them, or they hand it back to the person who introduced them after they've concluded their speech. Generally, you do not want to cross over each other when you're coming up to hand off the control of the lectern. And I know Sheila today did cross over. We have to remain aware of the fact that with a stage, and this applies even for meetings that you might be at, you have to gauge which side you want to come up on and which side you will go off from as far as handing off the lectern, because the person who's controlling the lectern is basically in control of the meeting. What other comments do I want to make about our meeting today? The word of the day, as Darren pointed out, was used once. We didn't have too many people up here flaunting or flouting. I hadn't really thought about the difference between those two words. Now I'll probably notice how they are being used. I think that our meeting overall has gone very well today. Our table topics were interesting. I think Rick did a good job of asking us to give our perspectives on some aspect of Toastmasters, which is informative for our audience and also makes the Toastmasters that are here actually step back and think a little bit specifically about what it is with Toastmasters that they like, they do, that brought them in, something about Toastmasters in particular. These are probably things people want to know about, but don't necessarily know how to ask. We're not going to have any problems with starting and stopping on time. Our evaluators gave good evaluations. Dick was very thoughtful in his presentation of Sheila's speech today, and I really don't have anything specific to comment to you on your presentation, Dick. I didn't see anything that I could think of right offhand to enhance your evaluation. And Darren, I don't have anything other than your ah or that you used. The one thing that you might want to make people aware of is that as a part of doing the grammarian and ah counter, we count the ahs, which is a fairly conspicuous crutch. But then what happens, at least in my experience, is that as Toastmasters become more adept at avoiding the use of ahs and ums, we start using other crutches, like so, and. We use run-on sentences. We may have some pet word other than ah that we will use, rather than just allowing for a pause. With that, I'm going to turn it back to our Toastmaster for today, and he will wind down the meeting and turn it back ultimately to our president. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Steve. I think that there was a successful meeting, and I would now like to return control to our president, who will close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And I'd like to thank everyone for choosing to spend time with us today. That's important. I would like to mention that the ahs and the ums, those are little hiccups of thought that erupt as we are thinking. Learn to think with your mouth closed. I would also like to mention, if you can see the distinguished club plan behind us, Toastmaster has 10 goals that tell us how your club is doing in achieving. And we have already achieved one goal. We've had our officer report in on time, and we had our dues in on time. So let's give ourselves a hand for accomplishing one of our goals. I would also like to thank Steve for his evaluation. When I gave Sheila the little note of encouragement, I wrote that she had a little excess shuffling of the notes due to not having a lectern. So I'm glad you addressed that, and we will make sure that we have a lectern at our next one, because normally Sheila does not shuffle the notes, and that created a little awkwardness for her. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'd like to thank everyone, and I would to give you a little more, hand me that flaunt and flout. Darren told us how to use the words in a sentence, but to actually know the definition, flaunt is a verb, and it's to make an ostentatious display, to move or act ostentatiously, to be glaring or gaudy. Whereas flout is to mock or insult. It's also a verb. And to treat with contempt or disrespect, to jeer at, to defy. So when I was up here before with my table topic, I was flaunting that I was Toastmaster of the Year in our district. With that, I would like to bring this meeting to a close. I would like, Darren being our newest member, I would like some comments. If you would come up, Darren, and give us your comments on the meeting.
Thank you, Madam President. It was a very productive meeting. I thought Sheila had a fantastic speech. I think it made all of us think a little bit more about what happiness really means. And I thought the evaluation was very effective. I thought it was a very efficient meeting, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm very happy to be back in the Toastmaster family.
And thank you so much, Darren. I'm happy to have you back as our newest member. Does anyone else have any comments to make? With that, I call the meeting of the TV Toastmasters October 22nd to close.